Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So 8:20 after that incredible night out, Michael Owens and his whole gang always do a spectacular job. So this is my second conference with Michael's group, and not to be outdone one to another. I'm going to speak about building and innovation and a host of projects that we have going on up at Columbia University Medical Center in New York. We're located right on the banks of the Hudson River in Upper Manhattan, immediately adjacent to the George Washington Bridge. We share the site with New York Presbyterian Hospital, New York State Psychiatric Institute, and several other groups. There's the National Track and Field Hall of Fame up there. We are a deep urban campus, a little bit very different than my co-presenter, Tom Morrison, who's going to speak about Indiana University. But probably like many of your campuses, is that we've grown organically over the decades. The campus was effectively founded by a gift back in the early 20s, and a host of the core buildings at that time. Let's see, I think I got it. There we go. We do have a pointer. A host of the buildings, really the core buildings, were built back in the late 20s, and that has grown organically over time. And interestingly, so we're not only a hospital, but we're a major research institute. We're top 12 NIH-sponsored research institute with 750 research laboratories, a host of animal facilities, clinical care, as I said. But over the decades, we have not done a lot for really thinking through education. With that, I'm going to speak to the education projects that we've really worked on over the last 7-8 years as part of an education master plan. So with that, like many of you, as I said, we are inundated with innovation. We utilize innovation to really inform many aspects of the way that we live. And I'm going to speak to really two key components. One is really thinking about the way that we study, and innovation really informs that, the way that we educate, and then ultimately how those two discussion points really translate into the way that we've been building. So with that, the way that we study is extraordinarily different than the way that people used to study. And I'm going to just use two iconic figures to kind of do a transition in my presentation here. First is that, you all know this person, but he's using a book to study. Something very, very different. Back in 2008, we built a brand new, what we call Hammer Teaching and Learning Center. We took 550,000 volumes of books in the medical education facility in the library, and we consolidated that down into 50,000 volumes. That came hand in hand with a new dean that came out from UCSF, Lee Goldman, and it was extraordinarily controversial at the time. So 2008, people were still holding on to stacks and stacks of books. And he said there's absolutely no reason for all these books to be here. What we really need is to be forward-looking, thinking about collaborative space for people to work together, to study together, and to be utilizing the technology much more effectively. On the left, you can see and really sort of on the right-hand side of that is just sort of the beginning of the edges of the stacks. All those stacks were effectively blown out, as I said, with the exception of about 10% of that. And those two full stories in the Hammer Research Building were converted into new education space and collaborative study space. The project was really used as a beta project, if you will, for another project I'm going to be speaking to in a moment, which is a new medical and graduate education building. But this project, as I said, it was really designed back in 2008. And one of the key discussion points is how much to really invest in and what type of technology to integrate into that learning environment. As you can see, What we did is that really we probably invested about $600,000 in these very sort of specialized tables that all have the laptops integrated into those tables, all flip up, type of furniture setting, integrated in with a whole series of monitors and so forth. Building that again today, that would, truthfully, that's all transitional technology at this stage of the game. The iPad has completely changed that, as has sort of touchscreen, large monitors and so forth. In addition to that, sort of the phase two of the change out, if you will, of the research library was all those books went by the wayside. The technology really went by the wayside. I'm sorry, the technology did not go by the wayside, but the study environments went by the wayside, and it was the administration that managed all of that research, books and so forth. That went by the wayside. And so what we did is it just opened up earlier this year. It's a much more collaborative environment for the students. And what happened is that whole administrative group for managing books in the older style of learning changed into basically a help desk that is there to facilitate a much more collaborative learning environments. In addition to that I will say that the furniture systems are extraordinarily important, and having a multitude of types of furniture systems and collaborative opportunities for students and researchers to sit together in a much more type of different and collaborative environment was very much key and central to the new environment. And then finally, while it's not, I guess, the sexiest picture, it really speaks to some of the technology and how students are utilizing that technology to educate one another and work together. And as part of the Hammer Knowledge Center, there was 8 different pods as part of the technology upgrade where people can use their laptops. You have 3 or 4 people sitting around, and then the opportunity to collaboratively demonstrate left and right between various students. So the technology, again, continues to constantly evolve, and I'm gathering that something like this may or may not be transitional again in the coming years. So my other iconic person is, hopefully you know who this person is. This is Sully Sullenberger. Sully was the captain, I believe it's United Airlines flight, back in 2009. Became really an icon for American heroes, and landed the plane after going through a field of birds, lost power, and landed the plane in the Hudson River. The reason I share this image with you is really to kind of underscore the importance of how we learn from one another and how we learn and borrow from different industries. Quite simply is that flight training has been a technology that has been part of aviation for decades. It prepares people and professionals to become the very best that they can and to manage challenging situations when those challenging situations appear. So with that, again, sort of coming back to our master plan dating back about 6-8 years ago, is we really looked at the convergence and thought a lot more about how technologies from other industries and so forth start to inform education up at the Columbia University. With that we worked through, and I'm going to speak about, just touch on 3 quick projects, about 8 minutes left, and how those projects deeply incorporate into technologies. First is the medical and graduate education building. The second is the new School of Nursing building. The third is the College of Dental Medicine. So across many of the health sciences, we have a tremendous focus and dedication on technologies, and we're really letting that inform the construction of those different projects. This is the first and perhaps the most major of the three major projects that we have. This is the new medical and graduate education building. As you can see, there's the George Washington Bridge right beyond. The building has an incredible framed view looking out onto the Hudson River and the banks of the Palisades beyond. The building was something that came out of an international design competition. We started with about 6 or 8 different firms. We then paid and invited 3 design firms to really go through full pre-schematic design packages. And this was the winning entry that was prepared by Diller Scofidio and Gensler Architects. Morphosis out of Los Angeles, and then also another firm, Kengo Kuma, out of Tokyo, were the 2 other entrants. But this project really spoke to what we called sort of the study cascade, and really is a super expressive of the way the new different learning environments that face back towards the campus. The building has been in construction for about 30 months. We have a planned June 9th building dedication. I'm a little afraid to say, and don't sleep that much, that the building looks not dissimilar than this right now. I am sure that we will get there, but it has been not without challenges. And truthfully, it really kind of comes back to the technology. In the same way as the technology informs the way that we teach and educate, the building, truthfully, about 15 years ago would not have been able to be built the way it is. The whole building on the south end, you see absolutely no columns in here, up and down the entire south elevation. But if you look very closely, about 30 feet back from the edge, on both sides, there's 2 columns that support the entire building. Where technology really comes in is in the building sciences, and it's all high-strength concrete, so it's 12,000 psi concrete. And then using a much older technology, the building was all post-tensioned, not dissimilar to parking decks and so forth. We spent a lot of time going out and seeing what our peers did before we built the building. We also had a program for the building, and the one thing, as a result of going out and seeing what our peer institutions had done, we took a national road trip, and we wanted to understand who's doing what. The largest component to that, and the thing that informed the program of the building, was us understanding how simulation informs and really is considered for the new next level of clinical skills and developmental training for clinicians. OSCE is basically objective structured clinical evaluation. Uses, it's basically on the left-hand side, as you can see, a whole series of viewing rooms, and then actors and actresses in those clinical settings, but there's a whole series of capture that people use to display and help evaluate students and future clinicians in a group setting, and transmitting those images to a broader group environment. The other building this is going to be done in about a year from now. This is the new School of Nursing building. And very similar to the medical school building, is that the programmatic requirements changed dramatically and focused about 25% of the building, then transformed into simulation facility. This is a building under construction today, and as I said earlier, a very sort of deep urban environment. We take advantage of every single square foot that we possibly can. As part of that clinical skills component is that Laboratories are instrumental to the simulation. You can see that, again, there's sort of a control room. There's a clinical environment that's a simulated environment. And then also those types of environments have complete transparency, not only eye to eye, but also utilizing the technology to broadcast to other locations in the building. And as I was saying before, is that collaborative study environments are very, very important. So once again, I'm sorry that some of these images here, you just finished your breakfast, but central to what we do is really utilizing the technologies and broadcasting those technologies and capturing those technologies. And when students are in a particular moment, in a particular learning environment, that becomes a learning opportunity for the balance of the class. In this project, we spent, change is constant. And one of the things that we did is we upgraded just several months ago to do all of the video capture in HD. It was about a $2.5 million upgrade, but what it did is it treats the learning environment almost similar to a broadcast environment, so that there's an audience that's remote. That audience has the ability to have a dialogue with people within the clinical environment and to have a two-way discussion about a particular methodology. Finally, this is the College of Dental Medicine. Not a new building, but a project that we have, 35,000 square feet. A little bit of a smaller project and a renovation and adaptive reuse of existing space. But the notion of really learning from one another and borrowing from other technologies is that we all went out to the International Dental Show in Cologne, Germany. And what we did is we really wanted to see and understand what the latest and the greatest technologies are. The one thing that I will say is that the advancement of material science is going to dramatically inform the way clinicians and students change and educate and work together. And finally, one of the biggest advancements in the project is there was a convergence of both the preclinical and the clinical laboratories in that. In old days, we used to do it completely separate, the preclinical environment, so that they'd be working with mannequins. And then in this facility is that we integrated in the preclinical environment using the mannequins, using the technologies into the operatories, and integrating that in so that it was a real space saver on this particular project. And then just sort of in departing is we really take our slogan to heart. It's on our website, it's on most of our stationery, and there is, across all mediums, this in the research environment, in the clinical care environment, and then in the education environment, the discovery, the education, care, and then leadership across all those areas is of extraordinary importance to us. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Tom. Do you want to, should we do questions now, or do you want to?
We'll do questions after, Tom, and let both of you guys field some questions after that.
Perfect.
Thanks very much, Pat.
Okay.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you. We'll get loaded up here on presentation. I said to Mateus earlier, he came in and he was surprised there were so many people here. And I thought to myself, these are facilities people. You guys have already solved half a dozen problems before breakfast. And so I'm glad you're here and glad you're spending time this morning. My presentation is going to be a bit of a combination of the two. We learned a little bit about innovation and reuse of space and planning for that. And we also talked about the very specific learning spaces. And I'm going to talk about some combinations of two for Indiana University. Every project we do at any pace with the university has to involve a series of questions. And the first question is, what is the need? And because these are all about intersections. That's where we're going. Michael talked about where we're going in the future, and this is about tomorrow. But there are some base questions we always have to ask ourselves. And for us, it's all about intersections and what is the need. We have lots of people that we serve in universities, deans, faculty, presidents, trustees, who all like bright, new, shiny buildings, but doesn't necessarily mean that we need it. And so even though we're building for tomorrow, we always have to be sure of we're talking about need. 2 is university mission. That never goes away. What is it that we're trying to achieve? Not all universities are the same. Ours is focused on one thing. Yours may be focused on another. Master plans. We want to always be true to our master plans that we look at every generation or so, and to make sure we're true to those plans, because you can get outside of your own box pretty quickly. And then in terms of what we're talking about with research and innovation, I think there are 2 other things. 1 is economic development, and 2 are partnerships. Those are things that maybe we didn't talk about 20 years ago when we were looking at building buildings for research and innovation. And every community is trying to do the same thing. Doesn't matter whether you live in New York, California, Philadelphia, Indiana, the Midwest. Every community that you live in is trying to find the magic bullet to drive economic development and try to create high-wage jobs in your community. And because we have the university in those communities, we are a key to most of that because we have the knowledge base. We have the brain power that's going to fuel those high-wage jobs. So we are at the intersection, again, that word intersection again, of all of those things. And so it is, we're not doing anything unique where we are that isn't being looked at someplace else. But every community is trying to do is to leverage the power of the university and that brain power and that research. And that then creates partnerships. And later on this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about P3s, public-private partnerships, that has us doing things, again, differently than we did it a decade or 2 ago. So I'm going to talk about 5 major projects that we have going on. I'm going to talk about 16 Tech district in Indiana, which is a part of the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute. Or I'm going to talk about expansion of Indiana University Health. We have a health system that's the largest health system in Indiana, and we're going to talk about the new academic health center with that. That's about $1 billion project. We're going to talk about the Wishard Hospital redevelopment site, which is on the campus of the Indiana University School of Medicine. We're going to talk about in our Bloomington campus, Regional Academic Health Center, and then last, multi-institutional, 3 universities coming together to create a health sciences center in Evansville, Indiana. All of this added up is over $2 billion worth of project. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those. So let's start first. Just to give you a little bit of geography, for those of you, the very few of you that don't know the capital city of Indiana and Indianapolis, I'll give you just downtown Indianapolis is here. This is the IUPUI campus and the IU School of Medicine that is administrated by Indiana University. And so this is our campus here. And then this is, I'm going to be talking about in a second, the Wishard Hospital space. This is the IU Health Academic Health Center space that I'm going to be talking about up here. And this is the district of 16 Tech. And that, a little bit closer up, is at the campus is now down here. And this is at the confluence of the White River and Fall Creek right here. So, water. One of the constraints of that site is that this is where all the drinking water, all the water for the city of Indianapolis comes from. That's basically the water company is right here. That's why that's all green space right there. So serious wells there and serious water lines. It's part of the reason it's never been developed. This is somewhat industrial space. We, IU, have acquired most of it over time. The water company owns the rest of it, and then the city. And so developing it is hard. And finally, there's been an effort over the last decade or so to try to figure out how do we leverage this real estate location next to the university to create something special in terms of research and innovation. Because one of the things we know about researchers is that they want to be near other researchers. They want to, so even if there was drug companies or whatever that located here, they want to be close to the research that's going on with the School of Medicine right there. And so that's what makes that geography very important. Lots of different property owners here, but most of it is ours. So the purple boxes are Indiana University, the blue boxes are Indiana University. And so this is a public-private partnership. We're bringing all these property owners together for one common cause to create a single technology and innovation district, utilizing existing buildings that were there, not unlike what Mateus was talking about, with some old warehouse buildings, but also new developments. And then this is the master plan for that site that creates the new district. These are still the well fields here that can't be built upon, but building around the water lines underneath here. And then one of the key components of this is the campus is right here and building a new bridge across Fall Creek that will join the two together, but also create a major point of ingress and egress for the campus that we've long needed. But this is the development of that site down the road. It includes research and innovation space, space for private companies to grow, research buildings, as you might imagine, eventually restaurants and housing and hotels and things like that. All of this built out is about $500 million worth of project. And again, those are things that we're talking about, those intersections today that maybe we didn't before, was all those industries were working in different silos. And this is, again, the city and the state and the private sector and the university all coming together. Second project I'll talk about is the Wishard Hospital redevelopment. This one right here, it was an old county hospital that we acquired in a big trade so that they could build a new hospital, and 13 buildings. And we have been, that's an aerial of all those buildings. And I will tell you that if any of you have old hospitals in your communities, they are going away at a rapid pace. And what to do with those buildings is a big question. Because of the changes in healthcare, building new hospitals is a big industry. And we have acquired or trying to deal with several right now as to what we do with them, because old hospitals don't convert very well. And so this one was one that we acquired, and so we ended up demolishing a good chunk of it. That's part of the demolition process. Again, I'm guessing that you have some hospital buildings in your communities that might look like that, built in the 50s and 60s, maybe early 70s, and they're becoming non-functional given where healthcare is going today. So we took down a bunch of that, and that's what that space will now look like, as open space surrounded by the buildings we decided to keep. And then again, the School of Medicine and research space, our existing research buildings are down here. And then built out in terms of a master plan, these are the new research buildings that will go in here. This is looking at it from the other direction. This is the Fall Creek. This is the 16 Tech over here. Looking back towards the campus, hospitals here, major children's hospital, the Riley Children's Hospital is right there. And then this is all research space for the School of Medicine that exists, and then new research space here. This is another hospital building right here that I didn't show you that is likely to come down as well because it is becoming obsolete. That leads us to new academic health center. So we were just talking about this space right here, and we were talking about the footprint right here with Wishard. Now we're going to go over here by about 3/4 of a mile. And this is what's the IU Health Methodist Hospital campus. And looking at that from a closer direction, this is I-65. And major hospital complex, but about half of this will be torn down and built new. And this will be a combination, again, those connections between healthcare and education that Pat talked about, is that within here, we're going to move the hub, the academic hub of the School of Medicine, to this location and put all of the academic instruction of the School of Medicine at this site. It's long been practiced to put the School of Medicine beside a hospital. That's not new. What's new is some of the spaces that Pat talked about, is integrating education into the hospital. So that if you could imagine a floor of a hospital having spaces that are educationally based on a particular floor as opposed to them all being in one building. And we're starting to talk about something that was long never discussed, which is the education in tandem of doctors and nurses. You can imagine that they're all doing patient care, but they get educated in separate silos. And we're starting to bring those people together, which is, from an education standpoint, very exciting. So this project will be about half of this will get torn down, new build, about $1 billion, most of it healthcare and hospital, education space built into it, and a little bit of research. We have all of our brain sciences and neuroscience research is right here through our School of Medicine. And so those are the programs that will be there. And then let me move down to our Bloomington campus. Again, for geography's sake, the flagship campus of Indiana University is in Bloomington. That's where our hub is of 45,000 students. And what we're doing here is, again, local regional hospital that exists on the other side of Bloomington. We are going to be tearing that down and building a new hospital on the campus, actually on our golf course. This is the north side of campus. Our golf course is right here. This site of this hospital right here is the driving range. Some of you may consider building on the golf course sacrilege. We are blessed with land. And so all we're going to do, this is the driving range. We're going to move the driving range over here. The golf course will stay. People in the hospital will be able to see the golf course. And it is a beautiful natural setting in the hills of southern Indiana, green as far as you can see. We've already had lots of jokes about people coming to drop off their spouses for appointments or whatever, and then they go over and hit balls. And this is part of a research park that already exists. This project will be about $400 million of a new hospital. Again, that trend of new hospitals coming to bear with us, but what we're trying to do is, again, create the intersection between not only the new hospitals, but with the academic training. So we are going to put our regional medical education School of Medicine site here. Nursing education will be here. Speech and hearing education will be here. Moving those from the main campus to this location to better serve patients, because that's what this is all about. And to better serve patients, we need to improve the educational process of location. And so those are the things that I just talked about that are going to be in that regional education center. Again, fostering that collaboration, those intersections, and expand our health education programs in southern Indiana. And then last is down in Evansville, Indiana, which is in the far southwestern part of the state of Indiana. We have again, medical education center. When I talk about medical education centers, we have, for the School of Medicine, we have regional sites throughout the state where they do their first year, perhaps in Indianapolis at the hub, and then they go off into different hospitals around the state. And so we have medical education centers there. We have one in Evansville right now. And so again, part of an economic development project, the mayor and others came together and said, what if we put all health sciences education in Evansville, in downtown Evansville, which would then include our Indiana University School of Medicine. It would include nursing programs from the University of Southern Indiana and physical therapy programs from the University of Evansville, which is private, and bring them all together in one building in downtown. And we're the lead on that. And this is about a $60 million project that is about to break ground, and with 3 institutions partnering on education space. There's a hospital right next door, but Evansville, like lots of small Midwestern cities, Evansville is the second largest community in the state of Indiana, but relatively small, having trouble economically reinvigorating their downtown, and they see this as a key cog in that, and I think it will be, because it's going to redevelop an entire series of blocks in downtown Evansville. So those are a series of projects that talked about. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have between Pat and I, Mateus, and tried to run through some projects real quick, but we're happy to answer any questions. And Pat's over here, Mateus over here. So, questions? Yeah, I think in terms of joint commissioning of that space, the hospital space is different, and so we handle that differently. And so those builds are different, and so we do commissioning of hospital spaces is governed completely differently. Patient care, all of those things. So those are separate bodies. That is correct, yes. So we will end up having a hub building for all the offices and some lecture rooms and things like that that'll be in a separate building, and then we will be for simulation centers and things like that. We'll be in the hospital setting, and yes, we'll have to fall under those commissioning rules. Depends, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of that later this morning. Depends on what the project is. The 16 Tech project, we are bringing all that land together by all the owners into one formed entity, and that will then own the land and then lease it back, and then we participate in the upside of what happens down the road on those land leases. It's a nonprofit, and so it's other that one is, yeah. In downtown Evansville, that property was owned by the city of Evansville, and then they turned it to a developer, and so, because we don't own any land there. And then the good question regarding the other hospital sites even though I talk about the hospitals, Indiana University Health and Indiana University, corporately those are separate bodies, but capitally we do things together. So the university owns all the land of those hospitals. So, and correct, right.
Sure. Tom, what's sort of driving this expansion that Indiana is doing into on all things health here? What are some of the goals you're hoping to get out of all this $2 billion worth of construction?
I think you're seeing it across the country. I don't think it's unique to us. We've just, we're all one happy family. But Pat's doing the same thing. It's all related to the changes in healthcare. People think, or the thought was that when the Affordable Care Act was passed, healthcare would collapse in this country. Just the opposite in terms of capital. If you talk to major architects in the country, we are building hospitals in this country faster than you could ever imagine. Because the demands of healthcare now is that all that services be integrated, is that you can come, people don't stay in hospital. We're reducing bed count by a lot because people don't stay. They're there for a procedure and then they're home 14 hours later. And so then the intersection of being able to do your appointments in one place, that you're not driving across town, all of those things are coming together into physical spaces.
Yeah, so in New York City, you'll probably, there are 30, 40, 50, 100 different hospitals. I'm gathering that 5, 6, 8 years, you're going to have that narrowed down to a fraction of what it is today. You've got the Key Hospital just purchasing up the smaller local community hospitals, an extraordinary expansion, basically people on top of one another's, what was known as traditional turf. And you see really sort of expansion and identity by specialty. So Columbia Doctors, affiliated with New York Presbyterian Hospital, is really a hospital that, not dissimilar to Cleveland Clinic or Mayo Clinic, specializes, and we're a specialty type of hospital across a variety of sorts of disciplines. And that's sort of our mantra. With that is that what we're doing is that we have about 150 Columbia Doctors practice sites around in the tri-state area. and we're building those into multidisciplinary practice sites in a collaborative environment or a collaborative method with New York Presbyterian Hospital. That level of collaboration is also deeply informing the designs of the facilities, where you're getting not only simulation for education types of facilities, but also you're using that for clinical skills training for clinicians as well.
So along this whole thing with healthcare, I would imagine what you had addressed, or was being addressed, is also the kind of balance between what you bring into the central facility, perhaps more acute cases, things like that, and the growing, it seems, practice of going out to the customers
Right.
for clinic space and
Yeah.
even joint replacement and things like that. That has to be taken into account as you plan some long-term investment like you're doing right now in Indianapolis.
It does, and that's one of the questions we deal with, particularly in Indianapolis, is this is all in the central city of Indianapolis. And so the question is, how much of that do you rely on? Do you invest in being in the suburb or on the Beltway or something like that? Or will people have an aversion to coming downtown for everything? And you have to think of the patient as a customer. And then we have to, from the university side, you have to think of, again, if all the faculty and researchers are right there and you want to do research in the same location as the hospital, you don't want to put that out in the suburbs. And so, like anything in real estate, it's all location. And those are questions that I'm not sure we absolutely know the answers to. Some of this is a gamble. But we are trying to, the one in Bloomington on the core campus is putting it all in one location for an entire multi-county region. And so we are saying that, again, if you're going to have your hip replaced or you're going to have some procedure or surgery or whatever, it's all going to be right there. And then the doc offices will all be around it as well. And then again, we bring the academic programs to that location.
Well, thank you guys so much. We're out of time, but three excellent presentations this morning, so thank you guys so much.
Thank you.